Good day everyone. Let's talk about factoring polynomials. It's kind of related with index laws. Okay, so this is somehow the process flow of our lecture for today. So in rules for factoring polynomials, we have here uh, GCF. So you factor out and write the remaining factor in one parenthesis. Then we have binomial. If it's binomial, we have difference of two squares. Then if that's difference of two squares, then you factor it out as a plus b and a minus b. Then if it's trinomial, we have perfect square trinomial, and if that's perfect square trinomial, then you factor it out as a plus b raised to the power of 2 or a minus b raised to the power of 2. Then if it's trinomial again and it's different, so you use AC and B. So AC and B is a method that we will discuss later. Do not worry if you don't understand it by now. And the last one is four terms. You factor four terms by grouping. So how do we do that? So step by step, is there a GCF? If there is a GCF, then factor out as the product of the GCF and one factor and one other factor. Example, GCF, no? So the other factor, look at the other factor and go to the next step. So if not, then you go to the next step. So you ask another if the function is a binomial. So if the given function is a binomial, is it difference of two squares? If yes, then factor it out as a plus b. Factor it. If not, and a minus b. And if not, it cannot be factored anymore. So if it's not a binomial, then obviously you have to go to the next step since you cannot do anything about that anymore. Next it is if it's a trinomial. If yes, do you recognize it as a pattern of this? Okay, if you can recognize it as these patterns that are being circled right now, you factor it out as a plus b squared for this and a minus b squared for this. And if not, you have to go to the next step. So you are going to use a, c, and b pattern to look for factors. So can you find factors of a, c that add up to b? If yes, rewrite the equation. If not, you can't do anything else. And if not, you have to go to the next step. So the next step is the function a four-term polynomial. So these are the process that you need to undergo, no, upon factoring functions. So you can take down notes if it's a four-term polynomial. If yes, are there two sets of terms that you can group together? So you have to group. If yes, group and factor. If not, if it doesn't have a GCF, it's a prime polynomial. If it's not, if it doesn't have a GCF, it's a prime polynomial. So meaning there are no factors with this equation. So take note that at every step along the way, you must look at the factors that you get to see if they can be factored anymore. So if they can still be factored, you have to factor it out completely. Factoring completely means that no factors can be broken down any further using any of the rules you've learned. So let's have this example number 1. Factor completely x squared plus 14x plus 24. Now let's ask ourselves, may GCF po ba yung function? I think there's none. Yes, obviously there's none. You cannot factor out 2x, okay? Since this expression has no 2, but it has x, kani siya, ma-factor siya 2x, kani siya, dili. So you cannot factor this out. There's no GCF. There's no greatest common factor with the following function. So let's proceed with the next step because it's not, it doesn't have GCF, right? So if it's not, then you ask yourself again, is it a binomial, is it a trinomial, or a four polynomial term? So it's a trinomial. As you can see, there are how many terms? 1, 2, 3. So do you recognize it as as a perfect square trinomial? It's not a perfect square trinomial. So therefore, we have to use the A, C, and B method. Now, what's A, C, and B method? You have to use your calculator or your super math skills to find 12 and 2 as the factors to use. So as you can see here, A, C, and B method, if I will explain this one, A, C, what's A? A and C. So your A is 1, right? A is 1. Because there is no constant here, it's just x squared. So obviously that's 1. Your C is 24. So you multiply A and C, that's 24, right? AC is equal to 24. B is 14. Our goal here is to look for factors that if we look for two numbers, rather, if we are going to look for two numbers that if we are going to multiply these two numbers, the result is 24, and if we are going to add these two numbers, the result is 14. So as you have seen earlier, you have to use 12 and 2 as the factor because once again AC equals 24, B is 12. So 14 rather. So if you are going to multiply 12 and 2, that's 24. So that's correct. 12 plus 2 is 14. That's correct. So therefore 12 and 2 is a correct number that we need to use. So therefore we have to rewrite the equation. So you can see there x squared plus 14x plus 24 will now be x squared. It will be broken down into pieces as 12x plus 2x, since again, we use 12 and 2 as our factors to use. Then group. So we have to group them. Group this one first, then this one. And then factor out the GCF. So what's common here is yung x, right? X po yung common dito. And here, it's 2x. So, therefore, sorry, it's only 2 because 24 has no x. So, after finding the GCF, so guys, take note that this and this is the same. So, if that happens, you can have this x plus 2 as our first factor. There. And then our second factor is x plus 12. Once again, x plus 2 and x plus 12, that is the factor of x squared plus 14x plus 24. Because, again, x plus 12, x plus 12 the same. Pag nangyari po yan, this will happen as our final answer. Let's go with the next example. So, neither of the two factors can be broken down, so you're done. Factor out completely. Is there a GCF? There is. There is a GCF here. So GCF here is 3x squared, right? 3x squared times x minus 3. I believe that this is already the factor since that cannot be broken down into pieces anymore. Okay. Very easy, right? Let's proceed with another example. 4s squared minus 16. So there is obviously the GCF here. 4s is the GCF. Sorry, that's only 4 rather because 16 has no s. So it's only 4. Then we have s squared minus what? 4, right? So guys, s squared minus 4 is a perfect binomial. It's perfect square binomial. Remember that that is equivalent to s plus 2, s minus 2. And I believe that this is the final answer since it cannot be broken down into pieces anymore. Okay? So it's a difference of two squares binomial, therefore that is your final answer. Alright, now let's factor out completely. As you can see guys, this is a, there's no single factor that goes on all four terms. So there are four terms, so this is a four-term polynomial. So since it's a four-term polynomial, we factor it out by grouping. So we group this one kasi po these two terms have m and these two terms have p. So you can group them. Alright, so you have grouped them. The next step would be to factor out the GCF. So in the first term, we have 4m as our GCF since common po si 4m in both equations. And sa other side, we have 3p. So you factor out, we have the same equation y minus 5. So therefore, our factor is 4m plus 3p times y minus 5. Okay, now this is another example. Factor completely 8s squared minus 200t squared. Is there a GCF? Yes, obviously there's a GCF. You can factor out 8 and 200. Let's see. 200 divided by 8. Okay, that's 25. So therefore, 8 is our GCF. Then factor, so s squared minus 25t squared. Then afterwards, you have to look for the remaining factor for s squared minus 25t squared. So is it obviously this is a binomial and it's a perfect square, difference of two squares. So that is s plus 5t, then s minus 5t. So therefore, this is now your factor, or your factor. Factor out completely 6y squared minus 5y minus 6. Is there a GCF? There's none. So is it a binomial, trinomial, or four-term polynomial? So it's a trinomial. Obviously, there are three terms. So is it a perfect square? Obviously, it's not. So you have to use the AC and B method. What is AC here? Our AC is 6 times 6, right? Or 6 times negative 6. That's negative 36. Our B is negative 5. Oh, this is a bit hard. Since we have to look for two numbers that if we have to multiply two numbers, it will result to negative 36. And if we are to add the two numbers, the result would be negative 5. So, what is our number? What are our two numbers? So you have already seen that the two numbers, no, are 4 and negative 9. So negative 9 times 4, that's negative 36. Negative 9 plus 4, that is negative 5. So that satisfies our two numbers. So therefore, we can separate negative 5y in the middle of the equation as negative 9y plus 4y. So you can see here. Then you have to group, that's 6y squared minus 9y plus 4y minus 6. So you factor out the GCF from each group. So the GCF for each group, for this group, that's 3y. And for this group, that's only 2. Okay, so therefore, your factors are 3y plus 2 and 2y minus 3. Okay, so the next one, factor completely this trinomial. So obviously there's GCF, no? We can factor them by dividing all of them by into 3. So the factor is GCF is 3x. Okay, so afterwards, that's diba 3x ang GCF. So 3x. Then 6x cubed. So ang mabilin dire is 2x squared. Then sa PCAS is, so 15x divided by 3x, that's 5x. So 5x times 3x, that's 15x squared. Then minus 3. So this is that. So now we have to look for the remaining factor. This is not a perfect square trinomial. This is a trinomial, right? This is a trinomial. There are three terms. So is it a perfect square? No. Use AC and B method here. So our A here is 2. Our C is negative 3. So AC negative 6. Our B is 5. So what are two numbers that we can think of that if we add the two numbers, the result is 5, and if we multiply two numbers, the result is negative 6. So let's try 6 and negative 1. 6 and negative 1. That's negative 6, right? 6 plus negative 1, that's 5. So we have found the two terms. Therefore, if we are going to rewrite that, that's 3x times 2x squared plus, okay, let's bulag. Let's separate 5x into 6x minus x minus 3. Or you can interchange that one, that's also right. So let's see. Okay, that's right. What we did earlier was correct. So remember to change the negative 3 to a plus 3. Why? Because of the minus sign in the grouping. So just like this, no? We have to group them. Pag i-group nato siya with parentheses, everything changes, okay? Pag butangan nato siya plus dire, butangan nato 1 dara. So negative 1 times 1x, that's negative x. Negative 1 times positive 3, that's negative 3. So that satisfies our equation. Okay? Again, dirita na perspective. Negative x or negative 1x minus 3. Okay? So, gigroup na to siya. So, ma-change ang operation, ang minus sign into plus. Then, we have to factor out. So, here, ang GCF is 2x, obviously. Right? So, there. Tapos, dire, we can factor out negative 1 sa gawas. And then, x plus 3. So, therefore, our factor is 3x, then 2x minus 1, then x plus 3. Okay, next, factor completely. 2x to the power of 8 minus 32. Is there a GCF? There is a GCF, obviously. So the GCF here is 2. That's x8 minus 16. Okay. Now we have to ask ourselves, yes, right? We have the remaining factor. What's the remaining factor of x8 minus 16? Obviously, this is a binomial, and this is a difference of two squares. So, therefore, we have, so that's 2 times x4 plus 4 times x4 minus 4. So, we have to continue yet because x to the power of 4, kani siya, ay kani, is a difference of two squares, di ba? Pwede pa na siya ma-x squared plus 2, x squared minus 2. O, kanipod, may mo na po na siya x plus 2, x minus, ay, dili na di ay, sorry. Sorry po. So, continue na to. Yes, so x squared plus 2x squared minus 2. So, put it all together, magiging, si x squared minus 4, magiging ganito po siya. There. Magiging ganyan. So, not a difference of two squares, we cannot go any further. If 1 po yan siya, pwede pa. Because it's 2, that's not a difference of two squares. Alright, so you can try as your homework. You can try for this examples here given. And if you have any questions, you can ask me on LMS or on my email or during our Google Meet session. So thank you for listening. I hope you have learned something. Have a great day.